I mean, I've practiced a lot. I've jumped a lot of balls before when I was a kid. I just had fun jumping balls around.
I'm fascinated by Russian methods for sport because so many elite combat sports athletes come out of Russia. So many great wrestlers, so many great mixed martial arts fighters, great kickboxers. And I had John Bernthal on the podcast. He's a very famous actor who's in The Punisher and The Walking Dead and a bunch of movies and stuff. Really, really interesting guy. But he went over to Russia to study theater. And he said that it was so different than anything he'd ever done. And for the first year, you didn't even read anything. They just worked with you on rhythm and remembering things and concentration and acrobatics and ballet. It's like Russia is the way they treat sport is so disciplined.
Well, back in USSR, I think they treated it even more strict than nowadays. The coaches were really, really hard on the kids, and I think that's why they all raced with discipline.
Hmm.
I think that's the main factor that really favors them.
So in Russia, they have the pyramid game. Is that the primary game that people play?
That's what everybody's playing. I mean, honestly, pool is so small in Russia that you can count the players on both hands.
So why did your coach think that you should play pool then, if the pyramid game was so big?
Really, that's a good question because, like I said, I was really, really short. Maybe he was feeling that I
You
should.
weren't going to grow?
No, but he was thinking. I think at that time that it's better off starting with pool because I can reach the table and then switch back to pyramid. But he wasn't expecting that I will be as good, and I started to progress really quick. I started to win amateur tournaments, winning junior tournaments. And,
Let's see that game. Pull up a game of Russian. How do you call it? Russian pyramid billiards.
Russian pyramid.
Russian pyramid. It's Is it a larger table?
It's a 12-foot table with tiny pockets, bigger balls. So it's tougher to make the ball. It's a completely different game. It's fun to play. It's not fun to play if you never played any billiards.
Are the corners rounded or are they flat and
They're
squared
flat.
off?
They're flat.
So they're flat like a pool table, not like a snooker table. Oh wow! Look at the size of that table. That's wild. Look at the tiny pockets. So the pocket is essentially the size of the ball.
Almost.
Wow, this is crazy. Why is it called pyramid?
Because of the shape of the rack, I don't know.
So, and in Russia, when you play this, you mostly play with an open bridge, right?
Yeah. Mostly they use open bridge, but for like hard shots, I believe when they have to draw the ball.
And so you can use any ball?
It depends on the discipline you play.
So this guy is shooting.
This guy's some amateur. I don't know what
Yeah,
he's
he's
doing.
just whacking balls around. It looks
Yeah.
like. But at least we get a chance to see what the table looks like. So there's one, is that a red ball? Looks like a maroon ball?
So red ball is the cue ball. There is a discipline where you have to play only with the red ball, kind of like pool, and there is discipline where you can shoot any ball. But it's the same thing. It's a race to 8 balls, and whoever makes 8 balls first wins.
In any bucket.
Any pocket, yeah.
So the thing about snooker players and I guess probably this Russian pyramid game too is that your fundamentals and your form have to be so perfect because the table is so big and the balls are so small that any room for deviation on your shot, you have to really tighten everything up. Whereas opposed to a lot of American tables, those 5-inch pockets, there's a lot of room for fucking around and sloppy shots will still go in.
Yeah, I mean that's the difference between the games. I think fundamentals has to be really, really good playing snooker and pyramid. That's mostly what they work on. And pool, you can see all the players that have their own style, their own techniques, and they can get away playing some weird styles.
Yeah, they can get away with bad fundamentals.
Yeah.
There's some great players that had bad fundamentals. Like, have you ever watched Keith McCready play?
Yeah, sidearm.
Yeah, crazy, total sidearm, but amazing player.
Oliver Ortman from Germany is the same way.
Yes. Well, that's because they started when they were young and they couldn't reach the table either. So they had to have their arm sideways because they couldn't let it hang down normally.
That's my problem nowadays too, because my stance, I grew up with the wrong stance.
With like a straightforward stance as opposed to like a sideways pool stance?
Yeah.
Like a snooker table stance.
And Russian pyramid, yeah.
Yeah, similar, right?
Yeah, and I have to slightly change it every year because I'm still growing, and I'm taller than the average pool
You're
player.
still growing? You're 22? You haven't stopped growing?
No. No.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
So you also have to bend at the knees too, right? Because you're kind of tall. So like to lock the legs out.
So that's the thing that I always experiment with. I can play with one bent knee and with both bent knees.
Yeah, because I was always taught to lock legs. That if you locked your legs, you have a more stable stance. But then I watch guys like Shane Van Boening, and he bends at the knees.
Yeah. Well, every player is really
Yeah.
different. You can see, for example, Carlo Biado or Jason Shaw. They have their legs straight, both of them,
Yeah.
because they're not as tall as the other ones.
Right.
You have both legs straight, right?
Yeah, I always do that.
So
I was
yeah.
taught. I didn't used to do that though, but then I got some pointers from someone. Max Eberly actually helped me with that.
Mhm.
Max Eberly coached me when I lived in LA. That was the first. I had some lessons when I first started out in New York from there's a guy named Jimmy Abel that was like an old school straight pool player. He was a really good player. And a few other guys gave me some pointers and tips. But Max gave me some real lessons.
Yeah.
And he changed a lot of my fundamentals and tightened everything up because I had a lot of bad habits that I didn't even know I had. That's the difference, I guess, what I'm talking about with Russia. Is that if you have a coach and you have a program, it's probably explain how that works. Is it a very disciplined regiment that you guys would practice?
I mean, not really. It may sound really professional, but what happened with me, I had 5 different coaches, and from the very beginning, I was, for example, as a 7-year-old, I had a coach, and I reached the limit that I could learn from one coach, and my parents used to always tell me, well, we have to switch because that's the only way to grow. And once I found that coach, the very last Russian coach that I had when I was 13, I felt like I couldn't grow more because we don't have many professional coaches in Russia because the game is really small. Russian pyramid has many coaches. And I got really lucky because in 2015, Johan Reising, he was a Mosconi Cup captain many times for Europe and US. He came to Russia as a national coach and practiced with the national team for 2 years. That's when things really changed, and I think I'm really grateful that it happened.